It all started at a party. Nothing special, nothing out of the ordinary. I didn't plan for anything to happen, and I sure didn't think my life would change because of one stupid game. But here we are. So, to give you some context, I've been married to Derek for 4 years now. I love him, I really do. He's a good guy, smart, funny, supportive. We have our ups and downs, sure, but we're stable. Or at least I thought we were. That night, we were at this party at a friend of ours, Matt's house. It was a casual get-together with some of our old college friends. Matt is this laid-back guy who always seems to be at the center of the action, and we all ended up there just to hang out, have some drinks, and talk. The usual stuff. I hadn't seen my ex, Chris, in a while. He was there too. Chris and I had dated on and off throughout college, and even after we broke up, there was this thing between us. We were friends, or at least that's what I told myself. But every time I saw him, that old chemistry was still there. It was always a little uncomfortable, but I convinced myself it was no big deal. After all, I was married, right? I had Derek. I wasn't that person. Anyway, the night was going well. Everyone was drinking, laughing, and having a good time. It wasn't until later, when the group of us was sitting around a table playing cards, that things started to take a turn. It was just some silly game. Nothing serious, mostly for fun. But then Chris had this idea. You know, we could make this a bit more interesting, he said with that mischievous grin of his, the one I remembered all too well. How about we play for a wish? Loser has to ask for something. No limits, no taking it back. We all laughed, thinking it was just a joke. Derek was all for it, always up for anything competitive. And me, I just went along with it, mostly because I didn't think I had a chance of losing. I mean, I wasn't that bad at cards. But as the game went on, I started to get distracted. Chris was sitting right next to me, and every time I glanced over, I could feel that familiar spark. The way he'd look at me with that mix of mischief and something else. I didn't know what it was, but I couldn't shake it. I started making mistakes, messing up the game, and before I knew it, I'd lost. The table fell silent for a moment. Everyone looked at me, waiting. I could feel my heart start to race, but I tried to laugh it off. Okay, I lost. What's your wish? I said, not taking it too seriously. Chris didn't even hesitate. He just leaned forward, his voice dropping to a lower, more serious tone. I wish for a kiss, he said, looking directly at me. A real one. The kind that's been on your mind for a while now. I froze. I don't know why I froze. Maybe it was the alcohol, or maybe it was just the way he said it. Like he knew something I didn't want to admit. But in that moment, I could feel every eye in the room on me. I looked over at Derek, who was leaning back in his chair, a smirk on his face, like he thought it was all just a joke. Well, babe, Derek said with a chuckle. A bet's a bet. It was as if Derek didn't even see it. Or maybe he didn't care. Maybe he thought I wouldn't do it. Maybe he thought I'd back out. But Chris was looking at me with that steady, confident gaze. And I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to say no, to laugh it off. But I didn't. I couldn't. There was something about the way Chris was looking at me, the way he made me feel like the woman I used to be. The one who wasn't just someone's wife. I hadn't felt that way in a long time. I leaned in. I kissed him. It wasn't a long kiss, not by any means, but it felt like a lifetime. Soft, slow, but it was enough to remind me of something I didn't even know I missed. When we pulled away, my mind was racing. I felt dizzy, like I had just woken up from some kind of trance. But I couldn't stop looking at him. Couldn't stop thinking about the fact that I had kissed him. That I had wanted it. I had been so sure that I wasn't the type of person to cheat, that I'd never cross that line. But there I was, across that line, and there was no going back. The room was quiet for a moment. Derek didn't say anything. He just stared at me, but his expression was hard to read. I couldn't tell if he was upset, confused, or maybe even indifferent. Guess you got what you wanted. I muttered, trying to laugh it off, but it felt hollow. Chris grinned, but there was something different about the way he looked at me now. It wasn't just playful anymore. It was knowing. And I hated that I felt that way. I hated that I let him get to me. But it didn't stop there, did it? No, that was only the beginning. I couldn't stop thinking about it. That kiss. It was just a kiss, right? One stupid mistake that didn't mean anything. I tried to convince myself of that. But the more I tried to tell myself it didn't matter, the more it did. It wasn't just about the kiss itself, but about everything that came with it. The way it made me feel. The way it made me feel seen, like I was more than just Derek's wife. Like I was still me. I could still feel the weight of Chris's gaze on me, as we all tried to carry on like nothing had happened. The others went back to their cards, laughing, joking, but I couldn't focus. My mind was racing. Derek didn't seem to care. Or at least, that's what I told myself. He kept drinking, kept talking to the guys, and didn't even mention it. Not once. I kept waiting for him to bring it up, to be upset, to act like he cared. But he didn't. And that only made everything worse. The ride home that night was awkward. Derek was driving, like usual. Eyes on the road, quiet. I wanted to say something, to explain, but I didn't even know what to say. What could I say? That I kissed my ex in front of everyone and felt something I hadn't felt in forever. I didn't think I'd have to explain myself, but I didn't know how to hide the guilt either. I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. Chris's lips on mine, his hand at the back of my neck, pulling me closer, like I was the only thing that mattered, like he could make me feel important again. "Are you okay?" Derek asked, breaking the silence. His voice was soft, but there was something guarded about it. "Yeah," I said quickly. "I'm fine." "You sure?" he pressed. I could hear the concern in his voice, but there was no edge to it, no frustration, no jealousy. He wasn't angry, wasn't demanding to know what happened between me and Chris. And that made me feel even worse. "Yeah," I repeated. "I'm just tired." But the truth was, I wasn't tired. I was exhausted by the weight of what I'd done. Exhausted by the fact that, deep down, I knew I didn't want it to end there. That kiss, the way Chris looked at me, it had awakened something inside of me. Something I had buried for a long time. When we got home, Derek went straight to bed, like he always did. He was tired from the night, and I could tell he was trying to be the good husband, not pushing me for anything. But I couldn't sleep. Not after what had happened. I sat up in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how easy it would be to just text Chris, to reach out and tell him I was sorry for the weirdness of the night, but also, I wanted to know if what had happened meant something to him too. But I didn't. At least, not right away. I told myself I'd wait. I tried to convince myself it was a one-off thing, that it meant nothing, that Derek and I would move on, like we always did. But I couldn't stop thinking about Chris. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions with Derek. Cooking, cleaning, talking about work. But I felt this distance between us. It wasn't anything Derek did or didn't do. It was just me. I felt disconnected. I started to realize that it wasn't just the kiss. It was everything that led up to it. With Derek, I felt like I was slowly fading away. I'd become just his wife, not someone who mattered in the way I used to. The way Chris had made me feel alive, like I was someone worth paying attention to. I hated myself for it, but I couldn't help it. One night, after a long day, I found myself texting Chris. I told myself I was just trying to clear the air, but deep down I knew what I was doing. Hey Chris. About that game the other night, I just wanted to say sorry for being weird. I didn't expect things to get that awkward, but I've been thinking about it a lot. He responded almost immediately. "Chris, don't apologize. It wasn't weird. And you know what I think?" I hesitated for a moment. Then, I wrote me, "What do you think?" There was a pause before his response came. "Chris, I think it was exactly what you needed. You can only keep pretending for so long, right?" I didn't know how to respond to that. My fingers hovered over the screen. Part of me wanted to say no, to shut it down and focus on my marriage, on Derek. But the other part of me wanted to lean into it, to give in to the part of me that had been so starved for attention, for passion. I don't know what you mean. Chris, come on. You're not stupid. You don't have to tell me you've been feeling stuck. I can see it in your eyes when you're with Derek. You're not the same person you used to be. And I know you still feel it. That spark between us. That hit me harder than I expected. I didn't respond right away. But the truth was, he was right. I had been feeling it. And as much as I hated it, I couldn't pretend anymore. The next day, I was a mess. I couldn't stop thinking about that text. About what Chris had said. I could feel the pull toward him, stronger than ever. But I also knew that whatever I did now, whether I acted on it or not, was going to change everything. I just didn't know if I was ready for that change. I couldn't pretend anymore. The lines between what was real and what I was telling myself were starting to blur. I had spent the past few days wrestling with my emotions, feeling like I was being pulled in two completely different directions. Part of me still loved Derek. I did. But another part of me felt trapped. The kiss with Chris had sparked something that I couldn't ignore, no matter how much I tried. I didn't want to admit it to myself, but there was no way around it anymore. The moment I kissed Chris, something inside me shifted. The way he looked at me, the way he saw me, it made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. With Derek, it was like we were coasting through life. There was affection, sure, but no passion, no excitement. And I hated that I was comparing them, but I couldn't stop. The text exchange with Chris only made it worse. Every word he sent made me feel like I was slipping further away from Derek, and into a world where things could be different, where I could feel wanted again. That evening, Derek and I had one of those typical conversations we always had when we were both home from work. He was sitting on the couch, flipping through the channels, and I was standing by the kitchen, pretending to be busy. We both knew there was a distance between us, but neither of us had said anything about it out loud. I kept expecting him to ask me about the kiss, about how I'd been acting, but he didn't. He didn't even seem to notice the subtle changes in me. Or maybe he did and just didn't want to address it. Finally, after a few minutes of awkward silence, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to know where we stood. I needed to know if he even cared. Derek, I said, trying to sound casual, but my voice cracked a little. Can we talk? He turned to look at me, his brow furrowed, like I'd just pulled him out of some other world. Sure, what's up? I hesitated, unsure of how to approach this. I didn't want to start an argument, but I didn't want to keep pretending either. I don't know. I just feel like things have been off between us lately. I feel like I don't know who I am anymore. He leaned forward, looking concerned. What do you mean? I didn't answer right away. I wanted to tell him everything. About the kiss with Chris, about how it made me feel, about how empty I had been feeling in our relationship for so long. But I couldn't bring myself to say it. It felt like I was betraying him, just by thinking about it, let alone saying the words out loud. Nothing, I said finally, shrugging it off. It's just work stress, you know. He nodded, but there was something in his eyes. A flicker of doubt, maybe. But it didn't last long. Derek had always been the kind of guy who didn't dig too deep. He'd always been a little emotionally distant, never really asking the hard questions. And, honestly, that's probably why I let it get this far in the first place. Well, if you need to talk, I'm here, Derek said with a reassuring smile. I'm not going anywhere. I smiled back weakly, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't really here. Not the way I needed him to be, and that's when I realized that I had crossed a line. I couldn't go back to how things were before. Later that night, after Derek had gone to bed, I couldn't sleep. I grabbed my phone again and texted Chris. We need to talk. There was no immediate response, but I couldn't stop myself. I was on the edge, teetering between the life I knew with Derek and the pull of something new with Chris. Something that felt so much more alive, more real, than whatever I was living with. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed with Chris's reply. Chris, I've been waiting for you to reach out. I knew you'd come around. I felt a mix of guilt and relief. But the guilt was starting to wear thin. I was already too far gone. I don't know what's happening. I feel like I'm losing myself. And you're the only one who sees me, who makes me feel something again. Chris, I get it. You don't have to explain. I've been feeling the same way. We can't keep pretending everything's fine. You don't deserve to feel like this. You deserve to feel wanted. I felt that familiar rush of desire when I read those words. It wasn't just about the kiss anymore, it was about the promise of something more, something better. I had no idea how things had gotten so far, but it was like I couldn't stop. The more I talked to Chris, the more I realized I didn't want to stop. I knew it was wrong. I knew it was selfish, but I also knew that if I didn't do something now, I would never be able to go back. The next morning, I couldn't look Derek in the eyes. It felt like everything I'd been hiding was written all over my face. He asked me if I was okay, but I just nodded, telling him I was fine. I had to keep it together, at least for a little while longer. I couldn't risk everything just yet. But as I sat there, eating breakfast with him, I kept thinking about Chris. About how he'd made me feel seen in a way Derek never had. I had crossed a line, and now there was no going back. I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I couldn't stop myself anymore. I wasn't sure if it was the passion or the guilt that was driving me, but either way, I felt like I was already too deep into this. And soon, I'd have to choose. But right then, I wasn't ready to make that choice. I couldn't stop thinking about Chris. It wasn't just the late night texts or the things he said. It was the way he saw me. For the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel invisible. I didn't feel like the woman who had just slipped into the role of wife and nothing else. But that feeling, it came with a price. The guilt was eating at me. Every time I looked at Derek, I saw his trust in me, his love, his commitment, and it made me sick. Because all I could think about was Chris. The kiss, the way he made me feel. The weekend after that text exchange, things started to go downhill fast. Derek and I were supposed to go to a friend's barbecue, but I kept dragging my feet. I had no energy for it, no enthusiasm. I kept telling myself I was just tired. But it was more than that. I didn't want to be around Derek anymore. The more I thought about the life I had with him, the more I felt suffocated. That Saturday, as we were getting ready, Derek caught me scrolling through my phone again. I was checking for a message from Chris, again. And I knew the moment Derek saw me that something wasn't right. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, staring at me with that same unreadable expression he had when I first kissed Chris. Like he could see through me. But he wasn't sure if he wanted to call me out on it. "You've been on your phone a lot lately," Derek said quietly, almost like he was talking to himself. His voice had a tension to it that made my stomach turn. I froze. "Just checking some stuff," I said quickly, trying to sound casual, but I could hear how nervous I was. My heart was racing. I couldn't lie to him, not like this. He didn't push me immediately, but I could see the wheels turning in his head. "If you're texting him again." "I swear to God, Grace." I felt like I'd just been punched in the chest. Derek had never said anything like that before. It was like he already knew. "Derek, I started. But the words caught in my throat. I didn't know what to say. How could I explain this? How could I explain that the kiss with Chris had felt like the first breath I'd taken in years? That it had awoken something inside me I didn't even know was still alive. He didn't let me finish. "I saw you. I saw the way he kissed you. Don't act like nothing happened. Don't lie to me, Grace." My heart dropped. I was speechless. I had thought, for a moment, that maybe he hadn't seen, that maybe he hadn't noticed. But he had, he knew. "I didn't mean for it to happen," I whispered, my voice shaky. "It was just a kiss. It didn't mean anything." But I knew that wasn't true. The kiss had meant something. It meant everything to me. Derek's face twisted with a mixture of disbelief and anger. "It didn't mean anything. Grace, you kissed him in front of everyone. You let him kiss you. You didn't stop it. So don't sit there and tell me it didn't mean anything." I could see his hands shaking. He was trying to keep his composure, trying not to lose it completely. But I could see the hurt in his eyes. It was clear now. He wasn't angry because of the kiss. He was angry because I had crossed a line, and he wasn't sure if he could forgive me. "I'm so sorry, Derek. I really am," I said, my voice breaking. "I've been feeling so lost lately, and that night, it just happened. I didn't know how to stop it, or how to fix it, and I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to hurt us." His expression softened for just a second, but the hurt was still there, lingering. "How long has this been going on, Grace? How long have you been feeling like this?" I couldn't answer him. How long? It wasn't just that night. It wasn't just Chris. It was everything. The distance between us that had grown over the past year, the lack of passion, the emptiness I had started to feel. But I couldn't say that. Not to him. "I don't know," I said quietly. I didn't know how bad it was until that kiss. Derek's jaw tightened. "You're telling me this now? After everything?" I didn't know how to fix this. I didn't know how to make things right. The more I tried to explain myself, the more I realized that I had broken something I couldn't repair. "I don't know what I want anymore," I admitted, my voice almost a whisper. "I feel like I've lost myself, and Chris, he made me feel seen again, Derek. He made me feel alive. I don't know if I want to stay in this relationship if it's just this. I don't know if I can keep pretending that everything's okay when it's not." The silence that followed felt suffocating. I wanted to take it back. I wanted to take back everything I had said, but I couldn't. I had already said it. I had already crossed the line. "You need to decide what you want, Grace," Derek said, his voice low, but I could hear the coldness in it now. "Because I'm not going to sit here and wait for you to figure it out. If you want him, if you want that, then go. Then if you want this, if you want us, then you need to cut it out. And I need to see that you're serious about fixing this." I nodded, though I wasn't sure what to say. Part of me wanted to tell him that I would fix it, that I would try. But I knew it wasn't that simple. I couldn't lie to him. I couldn't pretend I was still the woman he married when I wasn't sure who I was anymore. I don't know if I can fix it, Derek, I whispered. I don't know if I want to anymore. And with those words, I knew everything was changed. There was no going back. There was no easy way out of this. I had torn apart something that, for years, had felt like home, and now I was left standing on the edge, unsure of what the next step would be.